There is a place in southern Italy where time does not just pass, it is, quite literally, frozen. It is a city where, on a hot afternoon, you can still read the graffiti of a political campaign, where you can see a loaf of bread baked 2,000 years ago still sitting in its oven, and where you can look into the faces of men, women, and children as they were in the last agonizing second of their lives. This is not a museum. This is a crime scene. The victim is the city of Pompeii. The killer? A 2-mile-high plume of ash and gas. The number of dead? Unknown, but in the thousands. And the chief witnesses are the dead themselves. For centuries, we believed a story that a city was buried and its people were suffocated by ash, their bodies perfectly preserved. This is a lie. The bodies of Pompeii are not bodies. They are something far more haunting. They are empty spaces. They are voids, hollows left in the stone that are the exact, perfect mold of a human being. They are the absence of a person, a three-dimensional photograph of their final breath. And the story they tell is not one of a slow, gentle burial. It is a story of a blast of heat so intense it vaporized their soft tissues in an instant. A 500-degree thermal shock that boiled their brains and turned their blood to steam. This is not just a story of archaeology. This is a forensic investigation. We are the detectives, and the clues have been waiting for us, buried under 60 feet of rock for 2 millennia. We are here to analyze the evidence, to profile the killer, and to give a voice to the victims of the day the sky fell and the world ended. Part 1: The Victim Profile. A city on the brink. Before we can solve a crime, we must first know the victim. And the victim in this case was not some sleepy provincial town. Pompeii was the Las Vegas, the Miami Beach, the bustling resort town of the Roman Empire. Set on the beautiful Bay of Naples, it was a getaway for Rome's elite. Senators, wealthy merchants, and retired generals built sprawling villas here, like the House of the Faun, a mansion that covered an entire city block, complete with gardens, mosaics, and a famous statue of a dancing faun that gave the house its name. But this was not just a city of the rich. It was a chaotic, loud, dirty, and intensely alive place. Its 20,000 residents were a mix of wealthy aristocrats, striving new money merchants like the Vesuvius brothers, who decorated their entire home with gaudy show-off frescoes, shopkeepers, artisans, slaves, and soldiers. Walk down the streets and you would not see pristine ruins. You would see chaos. The streets were paved with large stones, but they were also the city's sewer. Stepping stones, 3 large blocks, were placed at every intersection, allowing pedestrians to cross the street without stepping in the filth that flowed in the gutters below. The deep ruts from thousands of wagon wheels are still carved into the stone today, a permanent footprint of ancient traffic jams. The walls were the city's message board. We are the detectives, and this is our first set of clues. The graffiti. It is everywhere. Samius to Cornelius, go hang yourself. Epaphra is not good at ball games. Myrtus, you suck like a dish rag. And, of course, politics and business. Vote for Holconius Priscus, next to an advertisement for a local bar, or thermopolium. We have found 89 of these fast food joints. They were counters open to the street with large clay pots or dolia set into the marble, filled with hot wine, lentils, and the Romans' favorite condiment, garum, a pungent, fermented fish sauce. And then there was the lupanar, the city's main brothel. It was a small, two-story building with stone beds. On the walls above each doorway are frescoes, a menu of services offered inside. The graffiti here is explicit, a raw human record of transactions and loneliness. This was a city of life, of commerce, of politics, of sex, of luxury, and of deep, profound inequality. In the gladiator barracks, 63 bodies were found. One was a wealthy woman, dripping with jewels, who had perhaps come to meet her gladiator lover. In a cell nearby, another body was found. This one was a slave, a gladiator, and he was still chained to the wall. This was Pompeii in 79 AD, a city of incredible life, and a city with a fatal flaw. It sat in the shadow of a monster that it did not even know was a monster. To them, the mountain was just Vesuvius, a beautiful, green, verdant mountain, covered in vines and olive groves. It was a source of life, its volcanic soil producing the famous Vesuvian wine. They had no idea it was a volcano. The Roman language, Latin, didn't even have a word for volcano. The concept, slowly, did not exist. But the killer was not silent. It had been leaving clues for decades. The first and most important warning shot was fired 17 years earlier, in 62 AD. A massive earthquake. We know it from the historical record, but also from the archaeological one. When we dig, we find walls that were rebuilt. We find mosaics that were patched. We find entire sections of the city that were, in 79 AD, still under construction. The House of the Veti, that gaudy mansion, it was being completely redecorated because of the 62 AD earthquake. The people of Pompeii were not scared. They were Romans. They rebuilt. They saw the earthquake not as a warning, but as a challenge. In the days leading up to the end, the clues intensified. The earth tremors became a daily occurrence. Springs and wells, for the first time in memory, went dry. Animals, more attuned to the earth's groans, became frantic. And then, nothing. A deep, unsettling, preternatural silence. Our chief eyewitness, our detective on the scene, is a 17-year-old boy named Gaius Plinius Secundus. We know him as Pliny the Younger. He was 18 miles away, across the bay, in the naval port of Misenum, staying at the villa of his uncle, Pliny the Elder. His uncle was not just a writer, he was the commander of the entire Roman fleet, a man of intense scientific curiosity. Pliny the Younger's letters to the historian Tacitus, written years later, are the only detailed surviving eyewitness accounts of the eruption. They are the single most important case file in this investigation. On the morning of October 24th, 79 AD, and we say October, not August, as a newly discovered charcoal inscription from 2018 suggests the eruption happened in autumn. The sun rose as it always had. The people of Pompeii went to the market. The bakers put their 81 loaves of bread into the ovens. The politicians' supporters painted graffiti on the walls. They had no idea they were living in their final hours. They had misread every single clue.
Part 2, the main event, the 48-hour eruption. This is the timeline of a 48-hour murder. This is the minute-by-minute forensic analysis of the day the world ended. Day 1, October 24th, 79 AD. 1 p.m. approximately. The Cork, a series of phreomagmatic explosions. This is the sound. A sound so loud it was heard for hundreds of miles. Pliny the Younger described it as a bang that shook the house. What was it? Inside Vesuvius, magma had been rising for decades. It hit a pocket of groundwater which flashed instantly to steam. The pressure was unimaginable. It blew the plug of the volcano, vaporizing it and shooting it miles into the air. Pliny the Younger looks across the bay. He sees something his uncle, the admiral, must investigate. He writes, "A cloud was rising. It was in form like an umbrella pine, for it rose to a great height on a sort of trunk and then split off into branches, sometimes white, sometimes dark and spotted." This is the first time in history a Plinian column has ever been described. The killer has just revealed itself. The column of gas, ash, and rock is 12 miles high. It is blotting out the sun. 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. The reign of Lapilli. The Plinian column, having reached the stratosphere, begins to lose energy. It starts to rain, but it is not raining ash. It is raining lapilli, lightweight white pumice stones the size of marbles or walnuts. They are not heavy, but they are falling with incredible velocity. This is decision point 1, the first great detective question. Do you run or do you stay? The runners. Thousands of people make the decision to flee immediately. They run south, away from the mountain. They are running into a nightmare. The sky is black. The sun is gone. It is 1:30 in the afternoon, but it is as dark as midnight. A darkness, quoting Pliny, a darkness not like a cloudy, moonless night, but as if the lamps had been put out in a closed room. People are tying pillows to their heads, a desperate, futile attempt at a helmet. Many of these people make it. They are the lucky ones. The hiders. But thousands stay. Why? Fear of the dark, fear of the chaos, or simple Roman logic. The house is strong, the walls are thick. We will wait this out. They huddle in their homes, in their basements, under staircases. They are making a fatal, logical, and very human mistake. 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., the burial begins. For 6 solid hours, the pumice falls. It is falling at a rate of 6 inches every hour. Now, a new terror. The pumice is accumulating. The roofs of Pompeii are flat. They are not designed for this. They begin to collapse. We are the detectives. We excavate the house of the Menander. Under a collapsed roof, we find the bodies of 10 people huddled in a small room. They were trapped and then crushed. In another villa, a man is found. He has a pickaxe. He was trying to tunnel his way out through a wall that had become, in a matter of hours, a 10-foot-thick prison of pumice. The city is being buried alive. Midnight. The killer changes tactics. The Herculaneum story. While Pompeii is being buried, the town of Herculaneum, closer to Vesuvius, has been mysteriously spared. The people of Herculaneum think they're safe. They run, not away, but to the strongest, safest place they know, the beach. We go to the beach. We go to the fornaci, the boat sheds, great stone arches built into the seafront. Here, in 1982, archaeologists made one of the most horrifying discoveries of the 20th century. Pause for impact. They found the people.
over 300 of them. They were not crushed. They were not suffocated. With clinical precision, they were flash heated. At approximately 1 a.m., the Plinian column collapses under its own weight. It triggers the killer's true weapon, a pyroclastic surge. This is not lava. This is not ash. This is a 100 miles per hour, ground-hugging avalanche of superheated gas, poison, and ash, with a temperature of 500 degrees Celsius. It is a nuclear bomb of a cloud. It hits Herculaneum in less than 4 minutes. The 300 people in the boat sheds do not even have time to scream. The forensics are precise. The skeletons, we find them in pugilistic attitudes, the classic boxer's pose of a body that has been burned. The skulls, this is the most chilling clue. The skulls are blackened and the bone is cracked, exploded from the inside out. Modern forensic analysis concludes that the heat was so intense and so fast that their brains boiled and their skulls exploded. In the boat sheds, they thought they were safe. They were huddled in a stone oven. 6:30 a.m. Surge 3. The first surge to breach the city. It pours over the north wall. It kills some of the people who were trying to climb over the pumice to escape. 7:30 a.m. Approximate. The death blow. Surge 4. This is it. This is the moment. A massive, hot, fast surge. It is not as hot as the one that hit Herculaneum. This one is only 300 degrees Celsius, but it is just as fast and it is laden with toxic gas. It pours over the walls. It flows down the streets. It pours into every open window, every cracked door, every hole in the roofs. For the 2,000 or so people still alive in Pompeii, it is the end. This is the moment that created the bodies. This is the crime scene we have come to investigate. The medical analysis is instant. This is not suffocation. The heat is so extreme that it causes a fulminant shock. The air itself is the weapon. One breath, one single inhalation of 300-degree air, and your lungs are flash-boiled. It is instant death. The victims fall where they stand. They are not buried. They are cast. The fine, wet ash of the surge clings to their bodies, to their clothing, to the very expression of terror on their faces. It hardens around them, creating a perfect mold. Then, as the next final surges pour into the city, they are buried completely. Their soft tissue, their organs, their clothing, it all rots away. And what is left is the void, the empty space. We are the detectives. Let us now examine the case files of the victims, the hollows that tell a story. Solemnly, Case File 01, The Garden of the Fugitives. This is perhaps the most tragic scene. In a vineyard on the edge of the city, 13 people. They were running. They had almost made it. They were trying to climb the 12-foot wall of pumice when the surge hit them from behind. The victims were revealed. They are a family, an entire family with their servants. We see a man and a woman huddled together. We see their children, one a teenager, one a small child, his hand to his mouth. They are not hugging. Their bodies are contorted in the pugilistic pose of flash heat. They fell in an instant, a snapshot of a family's final, failed escape.
Case File 02, The Lovers of Pompeii. In the house of the Cryptoporticus, 2 bodies were found locked in a final, seemingly tender embrace. For centuries, this was a symbol of eternal love.
But we are modern detectives. We have new tools. In the 2010s, the casts were CT scanned and DNA analysis was performed. The result? It was not a man and a woman. It was two men. Their relationship is unknown. Were they lovers? Or were they brothers? A father and son? The detective work continues, but the scan has changed the story forever.
Case File 03, The Villa of Diomedes. Here, we see the tragic cost of logic. The owner took his entire family and 17 slaves into a strong underground vaulted wine cellar, the bunker of the house. They thought they were safe. The pyroclastic surge did. The superheated gas, denser than air, poured down the staircase. We found them huddled at the back of the cellar. They did not burn. They suffocated. The owner, however, was not with them. His body was found outside, by the garden gate. With him was a slave. The owner had a large silver key. The slave had a bag of coins and jewels. The reconstruction. The owner, realizing his family was dying in the cellar, tried to make one last desperate run for it. He and his slave got the gate open just as the surge hit. Case File 04, The Man with the Axe. In one of the city's barracks, we find the body of a large man holding an axe. Nearby, the bones of two mules. The story tells itself. He was trying to escape, but his animals were panicking. He was trying to cut them free when the surge claimed him. Case File 05, The Priest of Isis. In the temple of Isis, we find a body. He is dressed in the robes of a priest. He was found with a large bag filled with the temple's gold and silver treasure. He was not praying. He was looting, or perhaps saving the temple's wealth. He, too, was struck down, his worldly and otherworldly treasure spilling into the ash beside him. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. The final burial. Surges 5 and 6. They are the final massive avalanches of ash and rock. They do not kill anyone. There is no one left to kill. They simply bury. They flow over the city, filling every street, every house, every empty void, until Pompeii and its 2,000 frozen victims is buried under 60 feet of tephra. The city is gone. Part 3. The Eyewitness. The Escape of a Detective. While Pompeii was dying, our chief witness, Pliny the Younger, was fighting for his own life. His uncle, Pliny the Elder, the 56-year-old admiral, had seen the pine tree cloud, and his reaction was not fear. It was curiosity. He ordered his warships prepared. He was going to sail into the eruption. As he was leaving, a note arrived from a woman named Rectina, trapped in her villa at the foot of Vesuvius. Pliny the Younger writes, "His project changed. What he had begun in a spirit of inquiry, he now completed as a hero. He ordered his fleet to launch a full-scale naval rescue. He sailed his ship directly across the bay into a storm of falling pumice and rocks. His pilot panicked, telling him to turn back. Pliny the Elder uttered his most famous line, 'Fortune favors the bold. Steer for Stabae.' He landed at Stabia. He took a bath and dined with real or at least simulated cheerfulness. He then went to bed. As the world ended, his friends could hear him snoring loudly. But the mountain was not done. The pumice piled up. The tremors grew worse. They fled to the beach, but the sea was impossible. The eruption had drawn it back. The ships were beached. There was no escape. Pliny the Elder, a large, heavy man with a history of breathing problems, suddenly found he could not breathe. The air was poisoned.
He lay down on a sail, asked for cold water, and died. He was gassed, asphyxiated by the volcano's invisible poison. His body was found 2 days later, intact and uninjured, looking more like a man asleep than one who was dead. His nephew, Pliny the Younger, faced his own horror. Back in Misenum, at dawn, a pyroclastic surge roared across the Bay of Naples. Pliny the Younger writes, "We looked back. A dense black cloud was coming up behind us, spreading over the earth like a flood. Panic. 'Let us leave the road,' he said to his mother, 'or we shall be crushed by the crowd.' They sat in a field, and the darkness came. You could hear the shrieks of women, the wailing of infants, and the shouting of men. People bewailed their own fate. There were some who, in their terror of death, actually prayed for death."
Then, he writes, a gleam of light, not daylight, but the precursor of the fire which was to follow. The darkness came on again, a heavy shower of ashes. We had to get up and shake them off, or we should have been crushed by the weight. At last, the darkness thinned and dispersed like smoke or cloud. Daylight returned, and even the sun shone out, but pallidly, as it does in an eclipse. Every object that met our eyes was changed, covered with a thick layer of ash, as if with snow. He and his mother survived, but they had witnessed the death of a world. Part 4. The Aftermath. A 1700-year-old cold case. The crime scene was now cold. The Bay of Naples was unrecognizable. The Sarno River had been moved. The coastline was altered. And Pompeii was gone. Emperor Titus came to see the devastation. He organized a massive relief effort. He even sent teams to try and dig out the city. But it was impossible. It was buried under a 60-foot-thick, 25-square-mile blanket of tuff, pumice, and ash that had hardened almost into solid rock. The city was declared lost, abandoned. But it was not entirely forgotten. The first detectives to re-enter Pompeii were not archaeologists. They were thieves. Survivors, or more likely, professional tunnelers, returned in the months and years after. And so, they dug. They dug tunnels from the side down into the darkness, into their own buried homes. We find the evidence of their work. We find a house that has almost no furniture, no statues, no gold. It was cleaned out. We find another house. We find a hole expertly cut in a wall. And on the other side of that wall, we find 2 skeletons. The tunnelers, perhaps the owners, were digging in the dark. Their tunnel collapsed. They were the last victims of Pompeii, killed months after the eruption, trying to reclaim their lost lives. After these first grave robbers, the city truly was lost. Its name was forgotten. For 1,500 years, Pompeii slept. The case went cold, slowly colder than any in history. Part 5. The Rediscovery. The detective arrives. The case was reopened by accident in 1599. An architect, Domenico Fontana, found an inscription, De Curio Pompeis. He didn't recognize what he had found. He ordered it all reburied. In 1748, the real excavation began. But this was not science. This was treasure hunting. Their methods were brutal. They used gunpowder. They blasted their way into buildings. If a wall had a pretty painting, they cut it out. If it was plain, they smashed it.
They were not detectives. They were vandals. And then, in 1863, our lead detective finally arrives. His name is Giuseppe Fiorelli. He is the Sherlock Holmes of Pompeii. He stops the treasure hunt. He is the first true crime scene investigator. First, he organizes the city, creating a grid, a case file system. Second, he demands that everything be preserved, the pots, the pans, the carbonized bread. He understands that the garbage is the real clue. Third, and most importantly, he solves the central, haunting mystery of the crime. His men are digging, and they keep finding holes, cavities, strange hollow spaces in the hardened ash. But Fiorelli, our detective, stops. He looks, he understands. He is looking at the mold of a victim. He has an idea, a stroke of genius. He instructs his men to stop digging, and into that hole they are to pour liquid plaster of Paris. They let it dry, and then they chip away the volcanic ash around it. And for the first time in 1800 years, the victims of Pompeii are revealed. It is the single most important and most terrifying archaeological discovery in human history. He has not found statues. He has found the people. Fiorelli, the detective, has given a face to the victims. He has brought them back to the world. Part 6. The Closing Reflection. The case that never closes. The investigation that Fiorelli started continues today. We are the new detectives, and we have tools he could not have dreamed of. We take his plaster casts and we put them inside a CT scanner. We are, for the first time, looking inside the victims. We can see their bones, we can see their teeth, and the forensic report is astonishing. We learn that the people of Pompeii were remarkably healthy. We learn their ages. The lovers were two young men, one about 18, the other 20. We find children. We find a 4-year-old boy huddled in the house of the golden bracelet and a younger child asleep on his lap. This crime scene is 2,000 years old, but the case is not cold. It is being solved in real time, right now. Pompeii haunts us. It is not a story of the ancient past. It is a story of us. It is a story of how, in an instant, everything we know can be taken away. The man running for office, the baker, the rich woman with her jewels, and the slave in his chains. The killer, Vesuvius, was the great equalizer. It took them all, and it left behind a lesson, a photograph. The bodies of Pompeii are the most profound warning in human history. They are a snapshot of the exact moment that our plans, our ambitions, our loves, and our fears are rendered meaningless. They are the final fading footprint. They are not history. They are a mirror. And when we look into the hollow plaster eyes of the victims, they are looking back at us. The case will never be closed.